everybody. My name is Trina, and I am a physical therapist. I'm educated as a physical therapist. I'm also a board certified orthopedic specialist. But I'm here today in the capacity of working with you as a fitness instructor, as a teacher of movement. So what I'm hoping we can look at today is the very simple assessment and also practice of building strength around the hip. These hip muscles that we're going to assess and sort of look at today are related to our stability in walking, our stability in hiking, our stability in running, our stability in standing. I mean, they're just so important. The functionality and strength of these muscles really relates to our capacity to keep both our knee and ankle safe as we're walking and weight bearing and moving, as well as our back. So without further ado, let's get into this. We're going to look today at our hip strength, and in assessing our hip strength, we're going to go through these 3 different movements. The first movement we'll look at is a side leg lift. That's going to be looking at the muscle of the glute medius. The second movement we'll go through today together is a clam exercise, and that's going to be looking at the lateral rotators of our hip. And then we'll look at our bridges, third and finally, to assess our glute max. Bridges aren't typically used when we're doing something called manual muscle test, which is like the true strength test we use usually as clinicians, as physical therapists. But I do think that bridges are sort of more functional ways of looking at your capacity to strengthen your glutes. Okay, the props you might want a yoga block. If you don't have a yoga block, just use a rolled up hand towel. You also might want a resistance band that is in a loop or tied in a loop. So, and this will be relative to what you find on your assessments. Let's start with our side leg lifts. Okay, the setup for the side leg lift is probably the most challenging because it asks us to come into an awareness of where our hip is in space, which can be very in front or in back, which can be very hard to feel. So we're going to lie down on our side. I'll show you the side line first, and then I'll show you from a slightly different angle. Lying on our side, as you come down, your bottom leg can be bent, and that's just to allow for your back to be slightly more neutral in its alignment. And if you haven't listened to neutral spine alignment yet, I would start there because this will necessitate neutral spine positioning. So when you come onto your side, your top leg will be straight and slightly rotated inward. That's like a little spiral from the hip joint, toes down to the earth. Now, where the leg is forward and back makes a huge difference on this next assessment. So either if you look down, you want like your toes to be kind of lined up with your thighs. So either you want your legs straight down or slightly behind you. I'm going to show you that from this angle. There is sort of my setup here. Okay, so definitely not in front of the body, like it's so often done. Definitely not propped up on the elbow. Those are the 2 sort of no-nos. You don't want to work this when you are already bending your spine. So make sure the spine is stable. In order to make sure the spine is neutral, once I get my leg set up, I want to make sure my waist here, this waist that's closest to the earth, mine's my left here, isn't dropping down. So I'm not side bending at all. I'm not going to shorten the waist on top, lengthen the waist on bottom. I want to keep my waist the same distance on both sides. Yeah, for this next little test. Now I'm just going to lift up, and as I come up, I go through my full range of motion. How much movement do I have in my hip? If I'm not sure what my motion is, I can always just lie onto my back and go through that exact same movement on the side. I am by brushing my leg out to the side and see if that is the same. Okay, so I've got a pretty clear picture. I work on my lineup through my hip and also at my back and waist. And then I'm going to try to move through my full range of motion. If I can't move through my full range of motion, I can just roll on, or I have any pain or soreness with this, I just roll onto my back and work on this on my back. Okay, not quite ready to do this against gravity yet. If I can get in one good one, then maybe I just work on this, right? If I can do multiple repetitions, like maybe I can get through 10 of these pretty safely and well, then maybe I want to start adding a resistance band. Can I just put that somewhere? Here it is. Red. So for the resistance band, I can catch it around my ankles and work it here. I also could add resistance in the form of leg weights. Now this is, to be sure, a strengthening exercise for the glute medius. So you never want to do this exercise every day. Any strengthening exercises, you don't want to do them every day. Okay. Let's move into assessing the lateral rotators. So for the lateral rotators, I'm already on my side. I'm going to stay on my side. I'm going to rest my thighs together, my feet together. And if we look at this from the side, from a different angle, the back of my skull, middle back, tailbone, feet are all lined up as if I was lying against a wall. Okay, so that is my starting point. I also want to take care that my bottom waist isn't falling to the earth, right? I'm protecting it just like I was in that first exercise. Now from here, we're going to lift the top knee towards the sky. All of us will have a different amount of this rotation. Again, if you are unsure about what your full range is, you can roll onto your back and let the knee go out to the side without moving the back at all, without letting the spine rotate or tip to the right. When you find that range of motion where you can keep the spine quiet but the hip can move, that's what you should be looking for in this alignment here. So the spine is silent. Another good way to check if the spine is staying quiet as you're working on your clams is your waist not moving? It's the distance between ribs and pelvis are the same on each side of the body. And you can take your hand like a stethoscope and just feel when I lift up into rotation at my hip. Do I not rotate my spine? So does my spine stay silent? This hand's like a little stethoscope, listening and feeling. Beautiful. If that is easy, this would be done just like the first one on both sides, by the way. This is also a strengthening exercise, so you would never do this every single day, okay? Now, if that feels easy, I can put a band, a resistance band around my thighs, just above my knees, and I can work on this way. Okay, so first against gravity without resistance, and then against gravity with resistance. Beautiful. Okay, let's move on. We're going to work on to our bridges next. So coming into our bridge, we move onto our back. We can have our hand towel or our yoga block. So if you've got your yoga block, you're going to catch it in your upper inner thigh on its narrowest side. If you don't have a yoga block, just again use a hand towel here instead. We might potentially put our props aside in a second. So notice if your spine is neutral. So again, neutral spine, you want to have a gentle undulating curve. All of us have different amounts of those curves. Some of us don't have S curves, but we should be working to have a little lightness in the small of our neck and in the small of our back. So we're not going on this bridge. We're not going to tip and flatten the spine before we lift up. That's a really important concept for these bridges. We're going to squeeze in on the block or towel, and as we exhale, push evenly with each foot into the earth. Keep the spine quiet. Rise up as you breathe out. Breathe in as you lower down. Again, trying to go through our full range of motion to the best of our ability. For people who've done a lot of yoga, you will notice that we're moving at the hip and not at the spine. So if you tend to do bridges where you're raising the low back into a lot of extension, this is not that. Conversely, if you've done a lot of Pilates and you've flattened your low back, this is also not that. This is spine is quiet, neutral, push evenly, come on up. Okay, so if you can do about 20 of these well, 15, 18, 20, go ahead and take your prop and set it to the side. Now, you want to notice, take both hands and feel your hip points, okay? Make sure as we do this next exercise that your hip points stay even. If they come out of evenness, what you'll notice is when you lift up, there's like a tilting that happens where one hip bone goes higher than the other. We don't want to allow any of that to happen. Okay, so we're starting on our back. We can take a nice breath in. Let's all designate our right leg as being stable, static, not moving. As you breathe out, push evenly through both legs. Good. Notice the height of your pelvic bones, right and left. Now you're going to work to keep those even. Okay. Continue your breathing in and breathing out as you elevate your left heel. Any cramping, pain, loss of evenness through the pelvis, lower the heel and come down. Okay, just work on your two-legged bridge. If you can, lift your heel and it feels really hard to keep everything stable, lower down and then lower the heel. And then again, come on up, lift the heel, keep everything stable and quiet, lower down with that offset in your foot, lower the heel. Okay, that is level 1 bias bridge, right? Level 2 bias bridge, you come on up. If you can lift the heel, keep the pelvis quiet, it doesn't feel like you're redlining or working 100%, then maybe try to rise onto your tippy tiptoe. I'm like a ballerina on my left side, just on the tops of the toes. Is my pelvis stable? If I have any cramping, pain, discomfort, I'm going to come back to just the heel up, okay? If I feel okay here, I'm going to lower down. All right, that's condition 2. Let's try condition 3 if you're ready. Either stay at the level that you found best for you, condition 1, condition 2, or two-legged bridge. Or if all of those were green light, your pelvis was stable, no movement of the spine, no cramping, no pain, let's try our third condition. Go ahead and come on up. Heel lifts, tippy toe lift. If all that's good, can you lift the leg? Keep the pelvis neutral. Try not to turn your head like I just did. And then lower down with that offset of balance, keeping the spine, the pelvis stable. Release the leg to the floor. If condition 3 is possible and relatively easy for you, you can start on the bottom with that leg up in a 90-90 position, rise up, and then come all the way back down. Why do I not straighten the leg? Because it puts more pressure on the spine. So I'm alleviating the pressure on the spine by bending my knee over my hip. I'm just going to come straight up and straight down. My left leg is lifted, so the working leg is my right leg. That is the glute max that I am assessing here. I'm going to work towards getting to 10 really solid single leg bridges. All right. Okay, so that is it for the hip series. That's all for our hip series. And I hope that was helpful. I hope you work on those. Again, those are strengthening exercises. Please do not do those every day, especially if you identified some weakness in any one of those areas. Happy moving, and I hope to see you all soon.